It's November 23rd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with South Korea's partial suspension of the 2018 Inter-Korea Military Accord. A day after Seoul's decision, North Korea says it will immediately restore all military measures halted under the military pact, while the UN nuclear watchdog points out a suspected test running at the regime's key nuclear complex in Yongbyon. South Korean leader Yoon Suk-yeol and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak jointly declared that the Downing Street Accord signed in London means the two countries enter a new era of their partnership in economy, defense and security. South Korea has been elected to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee for the fourth time for a 4-year term through 2027. South Korea will have the final say on whether a property is inscribed on the World Heritage List. Right after South Korea's suspension of parts of the September 19, 2018 military agreement, the North responded that it will resume military action that the agreement had restricted. In the meantime, an activity has been detected at the regime's Yongbyon nuclear facility. Our Park Kwon-woo starts us off.
North Korea has announced that it will immediately resume all military action that was restricted by the 2018 Inter-Korea Military Agreement. The North's Defense Ministry made the announcement on Thursday morning and said it would place advanced military equipment near the border. This comes after South Korea approved the partial suspension of the September 19 military agreement the day before, as a response to the regime's recent reconnaissance satellite launch. Following the South's partial suspension of the agreement, North Korea also launched a ballistic missile on Wednesday night to the East Sea from Sunan, South Pyongan province. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it assumes the launch was a failure, but mentioned that Seoul and Washington intelligence authorities are doing additional analysis. But the North's recent provocations might not be limited to these launches. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency on Wednesday local time, a strong water outflow from a reactor's cooling system was detected after mid-October at North Korea's Yongbyon nuclear facility. The agency noted this could mean a possible test run at this facility, which is suspected to be used to produce materials for nuclear weapons. At the IAEA Board of Governors meeting in Vienna on Wednesday, Director General Rafael Grossi called the North's activity deeply regrettable as it violates UN Security Council resolutions. Grossi said the regime should cooperate promptly with the agency in the full and effective implementation of its NPT Safeguards Agreement. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
So North Korea says its spy satellite is functioning, transmitting photos of a U.S. airbase in Guam, and that the satellite will officially begin its mission on December 1st. Let's discuss more about this satellite with Professor Brian Myers this morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Professor, the North appears to be pretty confident that its latest launch was a success. Then what makes a satellite launch a success?
Well, I'd say there are two layers of success, really. The first is getting the satellite into stable orbit, in other words, into a circular path around the Earth. And the next layer is making sure that it can transmit and receive data and perform the various tasks that it was designed to do. Now, as you know, the regime claims to have received photographs of U.S. military bases on Guam that were taken by the satellite, but we haven't seen them. And we also don't know if the satellite's solar panels are in order. Those need to be working for the satellite to recharge itself. So while the experts agree that the Malikyang has gone into orbit, which is in itself good news for Kim Jong-un, apparently it's going to take a bit longer for the outside world to determine whether it's fully operational.
Right, the verification process is still ongoing. Then let's say the satellite successfully made it into the orbit. Then what now? I mean, how clear will the pictures taken by the satellite be? Should South Korea be too concerned?
Well, you know, it's tough even for OECD countries to launch a good reconnaissance satellite, and North Korea has to deal with a range of sanctions which are meant to prevent precisely this kind of activity. So even if the satellite is operational, the experts say it's unlikely to offer the kind of high-resolution images that a country like the U.S. can get from satellites. And this means that while North Korea would acquire the ability to monitor large troop movements down here, large ship movements, its ability to monitor the smaller ones is going to be limited. Now, as for how concerned South Korea and the U.S. should be, there's been some debate about this because some people think it may be better for peace on the peninsula if North Korea is not in the dark. In other words, if it can reassure itself that its enemies are not amassing troops on the DMZ and so on. I think the real cause for concern here is not the satellite per se, but the advance in ICBM technology that has made the satellite launch possible, because this technology can be used to launch nuclear warheads or to launch future satellites that might have, more ominous uses like electronic warfare.
Definitely. And what South Korea's intel agency is saying that it does believe that the launch was a success with the help of Russia, the highly anticipated aid from the country. Now, how much advanced military technology will the North actually get from Russia then?
Well, first of all, I think it's unlikely that any big transfer of know-how preceded this satellite launch because there just wasn't enough time. The Russians could well have looked over the data from the last two launches and then looked over the third rocket and given some advice, but I don't think it was decisive. Certainly when a country is trying to keep a missile program going in the face of sanctions, any help from a big nuclear power is going to be valuable. But I think the Russians are going to think twice before handing over, so to speak, the crown jewels of their own technology. But let's face it, the war in Ukraine is turning in Russia's favor, which means two things. One, North Korea's ammunition is going to be less crucial to Russia as time goes on. And number two, Putin may well be looking beyond the end of the war and beyond Joe Biden's presidency to improving relations with Washington. So I don't see why the Russians would be motivated to bring North Korea up to their level of missile and satellite technology.
That's an interesting point. Now, Professor Myers, I have to point out this is the first time ever that the South suspended an inter-Korean agreement. It's always been the North that suspended or terminated deals between the two Koreas. And what significance does Seoul's decision yesterday actually carry?
Well, I'm not so sure it's the first time, because you could claim that the Lee Myung-bak administration suspended an agreement about a maritime peace zone that was made in 2007. But in any case, this is from the South side, only a partial suspension of the military agreement from 2018. So it remains to be seen whether the South will now scrap the whole thing, as the North Koreans say they're going to be doing. I mean, the tank barriers and the guideposts that were removed in 2018 are going to be a lot harder for South Korea to put back than for North Korea to put back. You'd have demonstrations, peace protests, and so on down here, which the ruling party, whose key slogan right now is integration, does not want to deal with as the parliamentary elections draw closer. So this means that South Korea's capital city of Seoul, I think, remains more vulnerable to attack than Pyongyang does, not least because Pyongyang is much further away from the DMZ. I think the main immediate significance of President Yoon's decision is that South Korea will now be free to fly helicopters and drones along its side of the DMZ to conduct surveillance of North Korean movements on the other side.
Right. And not surprisingly, the North says more launches will come in the near future. The North will probably step up efforts to really upgrade their space programs from now on, right?
Yeah, it says it will, and we're likely to see more pledges of that sort coming out of the Workers' Party, I think, in the months ahead. But, the tempo of the program is likely to go on being affected by factors that North Korea cannot really control, like the availability of key parts and materials, the supply of which may be unstable. Some of them are going to have to be virtually smuggled in over the sea routes. And I think the country's lack of funds is going to continue resulting in delays, regardless of how fast Kim Jong-un wants to push forward. But I think we can safely predict that the great nuclear endeavor that North Korea revolves around is going to continue. We're going to keep seeing missile and satellite launches, if only to demonstrate that North Korea has developed reliable and accurate delivery systems.
Right, and lots of other developments are happening up in the north, the Yongbyon site, and as well as the failed missile launch last night. All right, thank you so much for your insight. As always, you have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
President Yoon Suk-yeol held a bilateral summit with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on the second official day of his state visit to London. The two leaders agreed to cooperate on a wide range of strategic areas for both national and economic security, including deterring missile threats from North Korea. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea and the United Kingdom will develop cutting-edge military technologies to neutralise North Korea's nuclear missile threat. President Yoon Suk-yeol and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Wednesday jointly declared the Downing Street Accord, upgrading their bilateral ties to a global strategic partnership. The set of documents lay out key areas of cooperation in security and defence, science and technology, trade and energy, as Britain tilts its strategic interest towards the Indo-Pacific, which accounts for more than 60% of global trade and GDP. The two countries have a shared interest in promoting peace and stability amid geopolitical clashes in the region. As technology blurs the line between national and economic security, spurring a rivalry for supremacy in advanced high-tech areas, Seoul and London will deepen their tech cooperation and work to develop artificial intelligence and quantum technology for military use.
If AI and digital technology are utilized in quantum military technology, quantum sensing and control could thwart enemy missile launch attempts, cause malfunctioning in the propulsion and separation stages, and neutralize the trajectory from hitting the planned target point.
A presidential official told reporters in London that South Korea looks to maximise its own capabilities to deter North Korea's security threat and curb its illegal weapons activities and exchanges with countries like Russia. In doing so, Seoul will accelerate its research and development and build up a network of like-minded countries. On broader security issues, South Korea and the UK agreed to establish a new 2+2 dialogue between foreign and defence ministers and develop closer defence industry cooperation. They will also conduct joint military exercises, share maritime security information, and hold joint maritime patrols to enforce UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea. The two countries forged a strategic cyber partnership, the first such document adopted at the leaders' level for both countries. Seoul says this could lead to closer cooperation with the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network. In the accord, Yoon and Sunak jointly condemned Pyongyang's unlawful nuclear missile programs and called for an end to its military cooperation with Moscow. They also opposed attempts to subvert international law and freedom of navigation in the East and South China Sea, condemned Russia's aggression towards Ukraine and Hamas's initial terrorist attacks on Israel as unjustifiable, and sought peaceful and humane solutions. As they join hands across all key strategic challenges, marking 140 years of diplomatic relations, South Korea and the UK vow to work together to defend freedom and democracy around the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, London.
The Downing Street Accord aims to boost cooperation beyond security, as it focuses heavily on cooperation in the economy, technology, and achieving net zero by 2050. And President Yoon says all is possible as the two nations share a deep history. Our Kim Do-yeon has more.
Pursuing prosperity, growth, and security in our economies. That's how the Downing Street Accord signed on Wednesday between South Korea and the UK refers to the economic and technological aspects of this new era of bilateral cooperation. There are 26 items included in the second chapter of the accord, with notable achievements being the ROK-UK Framework for Semiconductor Cooperation, the ROK-UK Supply Chains Dialogue, and the ROK-UK Digital Partnership, and a key focus on supply chain protection.
양국이 그야말로 혈맹의 동지이기 때문에 경제 협력이라든지 또는 과학기술 협력에 있어서 우리가 못할 일이 없다라는 생각을 갖고 있습니다.
The ROK-UK Framework for Semiconductor Cooperation is specifically a commitment to the chips industry with, quote, both bilateral activities and cooperation in multilateral fora. The ROK-UK Supply Chains Dialogue, a ministerial-level meeting, will be established by the end of 2023 and will focus on strengthening the supply of parts and equipment for cutting-edge technologies and critical mineral resources, among others. The ROK-UK Digital Partnership will create a forum at the vice ministerial level to discuss telecom supply chain diversification, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. In addition, the accord aims to modernize the free trade agreement to, quote, reflect the importance of emerging trade agendas such as supply chain resilience, digital economy, and energy cooperation. In the meantime, the diplomatic accord acknowledges the importance of the MOU on space cooperation as the two will work together on satellites, tackling space debris and Earth observation technology. The third part of the accord focuses on, quote, delivering a sustainable, secure, and resilient future. Among the 11 items under this third and final part is the RK-UK Clean Energy Partnership.
A key feature of the achievements in this field is the concentration of efforts to spread carbon-free energy centered around nuclear and offshore wind power.
The two countries are also set to hold regular high-level meetings to discuss progress in achieving net zero by 2050. According to the top office, these specific items will act as a compass for the new era of global strategic partnership for now and into the future. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, during President Yoon's state visit to the UK, King Charles made members of K-pop girl group Blackpink honorary members of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. During a special investiture at Buckingham Palace attended by President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gun-hee on Wednesday, Blackpink's Roseanne Park, Jennie Kim, Jisoo Kim, and Lalisa Manoban were awarded with the honorary MBEs. The president's office says the MBEs recognized how the girl group acted as ambassadors for the COP Climate Change Summit and have been advocates for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The members of Blackpink were also among the guests at the state banquet for President Yoon. Now, the MBE is the lowest class of the Order of the British Empire, which rewards outstanding achievement or service to the community. South Korea has been elected to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee for a 4-year term through 2027. Now, this marks the fourth time that South Korea has been elected as a member of the committee. Lee Kyung-un reports.
According to the Cultural Heritage Administration on Wednesday, South Korea has been elected to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee for a 4-year term through 2027, marking the fourth time the country has been selected as a member. The country was elected as one of the 21 state members of the committee in 1997, 2005, and 2013. The selection was made during the 24th session of the General Assembly of the states parties to the Convention for the Protection of the World Cultural and Natural Heritage at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. South Korea was able to earn one of the 2 seats allocated to Asian Pacific countries. Seoul's foreign ministry praised the selection of South Korea, calling it a byproduct of active diplomacy based on its contribution to the World Heritage Institution. It went on to further say that it plans to make a leading contribution to the development of the World Heritage Institution in consideration of the new tasks, including responses to climate change and coexistence between regional communities and heritage. The committee has the final say on whether a property is inscribed on the World Heritage List. We're also examining conservation condition reports of inscribed properties. Along with South Korea, 8 other countries joined the committee, including Ukraine, Vietnam, and Kenya. Lee Kyung-un, Arirang News.
Hamas says a 4-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, mediated by the U.S. and Qatar, will begin on Thursday at 10 a.m. local time. However, according to a statement released by the Israeli Prime Minister's office saying that no hostages were expected to be freed until Friday, and that negotiations are progressing and continuing all the time. The deal includes the release of 150 Palestinian women and children being detained by Israel in exchange for 50 hostages held by Hamas since October 7th. Meanwhile, a G20 virtual summit was held on Wednesday, presided over by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The leaders discussed issues involving the Israel-Hamas conflict. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called the ceasefire agreement a positive development and said he hoped it would lead to a sustainable ceasefire and peace agreement.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. Starting in the Netherlands, where exit polls for the country's early general election on Wednesday suggested a victory for the far-right, anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders' Party for Freedom. According to a poll by the Netherlands national broadcaster NOS, Party for Freedom will take 35 seats in the 150-seat lower house of parliament, ahead of the centre-left alliance of the Labour Party and Green Left, which is estimated to win 26 seats. 60-year-old Wilders' election manifesto includes radical changes such as the Netherlands leaving the European Union and advocating for the de-Islamization of the country, totally banning incoming asylum seekers, as well as a migrant pushback. However, Wilders could struggle to form a government with the Netherlands' other three major parties, signalling an unwillingness to join a coalition. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte announced his resignation on July as his government collapsed over an immigration row. Now moving over to North America, where a vehicle exploded on Wednesday on a bridge linking the U.S. and Canada, killing the driver and passenger. The car was traveling at high speeds on the Rainbow Bridge when it hit a barrier and launched at least 2.4 meters into the air before hitting a U.S. customs structure and exploding. 4 major border crossings between the U.S. and Canada were temporarily shut, but 3 have been since reopened. While authorities say investigations are ongoing, New York Governor Kathy Hochul said there was no indication that the crash was related to terrorism. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency initially said the incident was most likely to have been caused by a reckless driver. The co-founder and former CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, who was sacked by the company's board on only last Friday, has reached a deal to be reinstated as CEO. Following the unexpected sacking on Friday, over 700 of the 770 staff members at OpenAI signed a letter demanding the resignation of all board members and the reinstatement of Altman. OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, said in a statement late on Tuesday that they have reached an agreement in principle for Sam Altman to return to OpenAI as CEO with a new initial board. OpenAI's new board will be led by Salesforce co-CEO Bret Taylor, as well as former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers and current board member Quora CEO Adam D'Angelo. A World Cup qualifying match between Brazil and world champions Argentina at the Maracanã Stadium descended into a chaos on Tuesday as fighting broke out in the stands during the national anthems. Fights broke out between the two sets of fans, with Brazilian police moving in to control the situation. However, what was seen as a heavy-handed approach by police towards the Argentine fans outraged the national team, including captain Lionel Messi, who led his players off the pitch, delaying kickoff by 30 minutes. A statement from Brazilian state police said officers had been involved in scuffles with fans and 8 had been arrested. Argentina went on to win the game 1-0, with Brazil suffering their first ever home defeat in a World Cup qualifier.
Good morning. Overnight rain has stopped and another band of wet clouds will move into the country, dropping a mix of rain and snow in central parts of the country. Then southern provinces could see 1 to 3 centimeters of snow on Friday. It's a warm but dusty start to the day. Especially those of us in the capital area are seeing very bad dust levels this morning, with an ultra-fine dust advisory issued in Incheon. The rest of the country will also need a face mask to protect against the bad air today. Morning temperatures are 4 to 15 degrees higher than the same time yesterday. Highs will climb similar to Wednesday, Seoul topping out at 14 degrees. Busan and Jeju very warm and sunny at 20 degrees. Meanwhile, east of Gangwon-do is under both a dry and a strong wind advisory, so fire caution is a must. Temperatures will plunge dramatically overnight. We'll need to exercise caution on the roads tomorrow morning. And if you're planning to be out of town this weekend, have extra layers. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.